I'm very happy to be talking on this theme of impermanence. It's such a foundational focus and practice and deep understanding in Buddhism. How many of you have had some experience really understanding impermanence? It's one of the marks of the characteristics of existence. It's one of the marks of existence according to the Buddha. How many of you have a real sense of this? Just out of curiosity, I'm new here, so really want to get a sense, and maybe some things that I share will be familiar to you and maybe not, so just letting it land. So anicca is the Pali word for impermanence. And it's a characteristic of our reality. And it's such a profound teaching. It's so simple, but it's so profound. It's that everything in all the phenomena in our moment-to-moment experience, internally, externally, is subject to change, constant change, and impermanence. So I say that, and does that resonate? Can everyone verify that that's pretty much the case in our experience? Can we all feel that? Yeah. It's a big thing though, isn't it? I mean, how does it feel for you when we really bring this into our focus, into our consciousness? And all of the phenomena, especially when we practice, when we become present mindfully, and we practice in this way, maybe when we're practicing just now with the breath, really the radical truth, this breath is really just this breath, and it will never be again. Did anyone feel that? A little of the preciousness of that. It wakes us up a bit. You know, we can kind of be on automatic pilot as we go through our lives. And the truth of impermanence, for me, it wakes me up a bit. Thoughts arise and pass away. All the emotions that we feel, they come and they go. Even from a scientific point of view, the body, I mean, this is radical. Our senses deceive us in some ways. The body is more space than matter. It's hard to believe. It's more space than matter, and it's always undergoing constant change. I think it's that 80% of the cells in the body renew themselves within 3 months. So just let that drop into your experience. You know, even the body as we know it is changing in ways that we can't consciously know. And this is the truth. So as we open to this from a practice point of view, the opportunity, and it is to contemplate this as an opportunity, it's a door for spiritual growth and development. And the invitation, the intention is to really be with our moment-to-moment experience in alignment, in harmony with the truth of constant change and impermanence. But what actually happens for most of us? What's really going on for most of us, though? Is that what we're mostly doing most of the time? What do you all think? Are you mostly really with it all as it is ending, arising and ending? No, I mean, right? We can be honest about that. It's really good to be honest about that. More often than not, and this is in my experience, I'm sure it's very common and universal, in relationship to constant change and things coming and going in the way that they do, the tendency, we're so conditioned on so many levels to resist, to actually deny it. Do you all resonate with that? Is that one that resonates for you? We fall very easily into these habitual patterns of denying, of resisting, of fighting or controlling, right? You can see what resonates for you, what familiar patterns are habitually there for you in relationship to this characteristic of our reality. We hold on, we cling, we hold on. Does anyone relate to that? Does anyone find yourself holding on? I'm wondering. So I'm sure some of you know this, that the Buddha said, you know, and this is a practice path that is a liberation path. It's a path for liberation and freedom. And he said that clinging is the root of all suffering. This clinging, this holding on. And what happens when we cling? Anybody? What happens? I mean, we could listen to the Buddha and we can feel it in our own experience that we suffer, we get stressed, we get stuck, right? And why is that? It's because when you try to hold on to and cling to that which doesn't last, it's a futile experience, right? It sets us up for suffering. We can't hold on to what cannot be held on to. It's a futile thing, right? So it really only makes things worse. And I like this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, it's not impermanence that makes us suffer. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when they're not. It's so eloquent and simple, but doesn't he just hit the nail on the head? We typically want things to be permanent when they're not. And this is where we can get into trouble. So while this makes sense, of course, we cling, we hold on. And in a deeper way, because things are constantly, if you really think about it, because things are constantly ending all the time, it's often said that the human realm is a realm of loss. So I'll just let that kind of really sink in. It's a realm of loss. Things are constantly ending. It can be very painful, this truth. It can be confusing and stressful. So it's hard. That's why this is a practice, right? And not only that, when we become more open to this truth, when we start to let go into the flow of our actual moment-to-moment experience, it's like going into the unknown all the time. Do you know what I mean by that? You really don't know what's going to happen when you're really open to life in this way. It's constantly changing, and it's never going to be that way ever, ever, ever again. You just feel the freshness of this. But it's scary too, right? It's moving into the unknown. And also there's a sense where we just don't have a lot of control. Does anyone feel like they have much control of stuff? Anyone here feel like they I saw a hand go up. There's really not a lot that is actually in our control when we're paying attention and really present with things. But there is some things that we do have control over. You had your hand up. I'm curious. I'm wondering, what is within our control?
Everything.
Everything?
Is beyond our control.
Do you feel, is there anything in our control? Is there anything?
Minds.
What's that?
Our minds.
Yeah.
Thoughts,
Yeah, it's how we can relate to what's happening, right? It's our internal relationship with what's happening. That is this radical point. It's almost like a rotation in consciousness where it's a big aha, where we realize we can't control what's going on outside of us most of the time. But we do, where we can place our awareness, is in how we're relating with our heart and our mind to things as they're unfolding. This is where we begin to rest, right? And it's a powerful moment when we start to pull back, we start to let go a little bit for trying to control, resist, and deny. We start to pull back a bit, and we realize that external conditions, because they're inherently always changing and impermanent, they're not sustainable, dependable, or reliable in any way for any lasting peace or happiness. We can't really count on it. Do you feel me on this? Right? Can't really count on that. We don't want to put our eggs in that basket. So then there's this sense of pulling back, and it becomes an inside job. Our practice path becomes an inside job, where we start to attend to our hearts and minds, the attitude, the quality of our hearts and minds in that moment, especially in relationship to this truth of constant change and impermanence. And in that way, we begin to discover that if we can cultivate more responsive, more wholesome, what we call wholesome and skillful qualities of heart-mind in relationship to what is arising, that we become more and more free. And what are some of these wholesome qualities of mind? I'll say some and you can reflect for yourself what those may be for you. They typically are, compassion, wisdom, really deeply understanding, wisdom, patience, and equanimity, and understanding, and gratitude. These are just a few. Love, and many more. These are responsive, skillful qualities of mind that allow us to meet the constantly changing flow of experience, the endings that are inevitable, and to be with them with so much love and wisdom that we remain free and available. And then, of course, we're also investigating and understanding how more reactive or unwholesome attitudes of mind and heart are actually keeping us stuck, that are feeding the clinging, that are feeding the suffering. And typically, I'm sure all of you know this already, the main baskets of these kinds of unwholesome qualities of mind are greed, right? Aversion, hatred, ignorance. It's a deep one. It's a really deep one. And delusion. And so for the purposes of this talk, because I think I could spend a whole Dharma talk on any one of these baskets, I want to just focus a little bit on the greed one, because I think it's a really easy one to access for most of us, at least for me. And this is this tendency in the mind to cling, to want more, especially the more pleasant experiences. How many of you feel like you're kind of addicted to pleasure? Anybody here but me? Where you just are looking, you can't help it. You're just looking out and planning for and hoping and wanting and focusing all your attention, all your energy on that next yummy thing, right? And all your energy is going there, and often you're missing what's happening right here. Do you know what I mean by that? There's just this greed, this wanting. And it's often said that greed, when we're caught in greed, especially with pleasant experiences where we're on that train, wanting that next delicious or pleasant experience, it's like tasting honey on a razor's edge. Really like that metaphor, because it's so quickly, it's so sweet, and then we cling to it, and then it begins to cut us, It becomes an experience of suffering. And I'll just give you some really small little personal examples of this for me. Yesterday was a really beautiful day. You know how when you have just a really beautiful day, and I went for a hike with my dog Louie, it was beautiful, it was sunny, you're really feeling the springtime, had time with friends, and it was just a beautiful day. And I notice this habitually for myself. I get really greedy when a day gets really lovely. I want more of it. I just don't want it to end. I start to feel this kind of energy in me that starts to do this to it. Do you know what I mean? I start to hang on to it. And as the day was ending, I noticed this and it started to be a downward spiral. I actually started to be sad. And I caught this in the moment, of course, and I noticed the clinging, the wanting more, not wanting it to end. And then in seeing it, just kind of letting go. And then in the letting go, what is mysterious and beautiful is that I can then experience what's next. Because with every ending, there's a new beginning, you see. Always, there's something new arising in the ending. And knowing that I'd be coming here today, and all these beautiful, beautiful gifts await me when I can let go and once again drop back into the flow of life. There's so many examples of greed. I could give many. But if you relate to this wanting to hold on to, and even for me also in an area that I practice deeply is, as a person who identifies as a white person, there is that greed, there's that greedy part that wants to hold on to privilege, that wants to hold on to being centered, that wants to hold on to being comfortable. And letting go, noticing that clinging, it's just causes more suffering, actually, in so many profound ways. So many profound ways. And the letting go, and the going back into the stream of reality, into the truth, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing in practice. And then, of course, with greed, there's also not so subtle, there's the ultimate, I think, for all of us, one of the deepest lessons of impermanence has to do with our own mortality. And the truth that we all are going to die. It's just true, we're all going to die, right? And we can understand this intellectually, but it's a whole other thing. And how many of you I don't want to die, but feel the need to want to cling. In our culture, we don't face death at all. We don't talk about it really. It's kind of a taboo. There's something wrong with you, maybe, if you die. It's really such a strange experience with this, but is the ultimate teaching of impermanence. And in Buddhist practice, I'm sure many of you know this, that death contemplation, really actively opening to the truth of our death while we're living, is one of the deepest teachings that we can experience. What's interesting for me is that I've been practicing for about 20 years, I guess, but what is interesting to share talking about impermanence is that what brought me to meditation and Buddhism in this practice path was not that I was really happy and doing really great and was peaceful and content. I was really a mess, and it was mainly around this area of impermanence. I'm not sure where it came from because I didn't lose anyone early in my life. But on many levels, I was very aware of things ending, of my own life ending eventually, of the endings of those I love and care about. I guess I'm just very greedy. And I couldn't be with it. I could not be with it. I could not accept it. I had all kinds of very maladaptive strategies to be in life in this way, and I had such a deep undercurrent of anxiety always, and I lived from the next kind of pleasant thing to the next pleasant thing that I could create for myself, and I was white-knuckling it through my life, and I was very unhappy in ways that I couldn't express. And even when things were beautiful, I didn't have the capacity to really feel it or enjoy it in any way, because I couldn't just be. And so I was caught in this very painful cycle of not being able to accept impermanence, being terrified, being panicked constantly, and then not even being able to enjoy myself when things were okay. And it was just a real knot that I was tied in. And I was very, very, very lucky to find this practice path. It was the time when my children were very little, and of course, I had a wonderful husband, 2 beautiful children, and it just got worse and worse. The more I had in my life, the more I had to lose, and the more anxious I became. And it's very moving to talk about, because it's hard for me to even recognize that person that I was. I don't struggle with that anymore. Learning and cultivating the capacity to be fully present in my life as it really is, impermanence and all, constant change and all, to build up the capacity to just rest in life as it's happening, is the antidote to all of the fear and all the anxiety that I experienced. And it's such a deep teaching, I can just drop in and trust the flow of life and not question it. And it's a beautiful experience of being very free. I still don't want to die. Do not want my loved ones to die. But I really can be, and there's something about being able to really be in life as it's really happening that is the ultimate freedom and satisfaction and contentment. I also want to share that for many years, for 10 years, I worked with cancer patients at UCLA. I ran a group, a mindfulness group, for over 10 years. And what was amazing about being in this group was that these were all people that were given terminal illness. And you would think, okay, this is a real waking up of impermanence, right? You would think that that it would be a downer, that it would be depressing. I mean, there was a lot of tears, but actually it was a space where people were the most alive that I've ever been in. It was all about life. And in the diagnosis of this illness, whatever illness, what it was a wake up. And everybody in the group was radically alive. Nobody was putting off their happiness for another day. Everyone was letting go of all the, I shouldn't swear, but all the you know what. And they were really living. They were starting to put themselves first in ways that they never had. They started to do the things they really wanted to do, and it was the most inspiring, most courageous experience. So in facing our death, what I want to say, it is about living before you die and having no regrets. And so all of these patients were my deep teachers and continue to be. And then I wanted to share with you, well, this is a quote. I'll share this quote. It's from Somerset Maugham. He says, I might need my glasses, It says, nothing in the world is permanent. And we're foolish when we ask anything to last. But surely we're still more foolish not to take delight, not to take delight in it while we have it. So really being able to experience things, really tasting life as it's happening is the ultimate antidote to any fear you may have. I want to share also another deep teaching about this, and I'm sure many of you know the play Our Town by Thornton Wilder. Does everyone know this play? We all read it now. Maybe, when I was in high school, we all had to read it, and it's a very famous play. And when I read it in high school, I didn't get it at all. I just went, oh, that's such a boring play. I didn't get it. But I want to share that about, I guess maybe it was 10 years ago, I saw a production of it in New York. And we went to this production because we read that it was very good, and so we went. And we came into the theater. It was a small, intimate theater, and it was in the round, right? So the audience was all around the actors. And when the actors came out, they were all dressed in their rehearsal clothes. They were all just dressed. Nobody was in costume. There were no sets. It was just bare, right? And just to set the stage, Our Town is about a town, Grover's Corners. And it's just a town in the U.S. But, I do want to say it could be any town, anywhere in the world. It's not just exclusive to a small town in the U.S. It could be in any town in the world. And in the first act, everybody's just living their lives. And it's a very ordinary existence. Nothing extraordinary is happening with these characters, and you find yourself kind of tuning out a little bit and kind of going, getting a little bit like, so the first act happens, and then the second act, you do find out about different parts of their lives and their families and such, but in the second act it opens, and a handful of those characters that you were introduced to have died and are sitting. It's almost like they're in the grave, and they're sitting in chairs and they're looking back at those who are living. and you're kind of shocked out of your complacency. It just does this to you. You go, wait a minute, they're not there anymore? What? And one character in particular, Emily, who's a young woman at the ending of the first act, she dies in childbirth, so she's there. And she's looking back. And all of the other ones who've passed away are at peace and seem to be okay with passing. She is not. She can't accept her death. And there's a character who is a stage manager who's kind of omniscient, who can move between these worlds, and she begs him. She says, please, please, let me go back to just one more day of my life, just one more day. I just want to have one more day, please, just one more. And the stage manager grants her the wish. It's extraordinary. And in this production, I always cry because it's very beautiful. In this production, when she goes back into a day of her life, some curtains open, and for the first time in this production, people are in costume. And there's a set, and there's light, there's sunlight coming down, and there's a tree. And she chooses to come back to a morning in her life on her 13th birthday, where she's coming down the stairs. And as she comes down the stairs, and it's her living room of her house, she's coming down the stairs, and the woman who is her mother is all dressed, and she's cooking breakfast on the stove, and it's an actual breakfast. You smell the sausage, and all the sense, it's all there. It's like suddenly it's, for the first time in the play, it's fully alive, like she's fully in her life for the very first time. And she walks down. What's interesting about it is nothing extraordinarily really happens. The mother's very busy. She goes, happy birthday, Emily. Eat your breakfast. Don't be late for school. It's nothing extraordinary. But Emily is walking around in that scene utterly amazed and can't believe it. It's so beautiful. And she's just sobbing. Tears are just rolling down her face. She can't believe it. And she's just utterly feels blessed. And at the end of this experience, she's able to turn to the stage manager and say, okay, I can go now. Just from living one day, one period in her life where she could return to, and that she lived fully and completely without wanting it to be different, without expecting anything else, and that this allowed her to be free and to let go. And the last lines in the play, she says, goodbye world, goodbye Grover's Corners, Mama and Papa. Goodbye to ticking clocks and Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee. On earth, she says, oh earth, you are too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize while they live it, every minute? And the stage manager says, no. And he pauses. And he says, the saints and the poets, maybe they do some. So this is a deep teaching, and I share it with you in the spirit of really waking up to your life, because even right now, this is it. This is it. This is the jam in the jam jar. This is it. I mean, can you taste your life right now? Can you really feel it? And can you see how beautiful this is? And can we together really be together in this way? And be vibrating and fully alive and full, letting life flow through us like a river. Can we be awake? And what does that mean for ourselves and for everyone around us? To be truly awake and alive. In the process of radically embracing impermanence, that's the gift. That's the paradoxical gift there. So I just want to end by asking, and you can just sit back and think about this, where are you holding on? Where are you stuck in the truth of life that's keeping you from really dropping deep down and receiving fully this wonderful world? It's such a gift. We often say, it's not what's happening. It's how we are with it that determines the full length of our experience. So that means it's all up to you in every moment. The power is yours. And this is a beautiful, beautiful empowerment. And I'll just say that I think key to being able to really wake up in this very profound way is in our practice we're really actively and passionately building up our capacity to be fully present with every moment of our life. The pleasant experiences, yes, when they happen we enjoy them, but we don't cling. The unpleasant, yes, even the unpleasant, that there's tremendous gifts and opportunities for our heart and our minds there. And the neutral experiences, those that we typically tune out and overlook. We cultivate the capacity to be present through all of that equally. And suddenly we're home. We're home in ways we could never, ever imagine. The good news about unpleasant experiences is what?
They're impermanent.
So there's some real benefit there. When things are hard, instead of tuning out, we can be with it and go, okay, I can really allow my heart to break open with compassion and love for myself and others. And this will pass. It will pass. That's the good news. So the beautiful, and I'll just end with this is a quote from the Buddha. The beautiful thing about cultivating this inner work, about how we're relating to every moment of our lives as an opportunity for freedom, is that, we can't take it with us. There's nothing that we can take with us when we go, right? But what we do take with us is what we've cultivated, the beauty, the inner beauty that we have beautifully cultivated. This is the most gorgeous thing of all, and that this is what we become. This is what we become. So this is a quote from the Buddha, and I'll end with this. He says, "The thought manifests as the word manifests as the deed develops into habit, and habit hardens into character. So watch the thought and its ways with care, and let it spring from love, born out of concern for all beings. As the shadow follows the body, as we think, so we become." Thank you.